10 years in this space, and I got to say, I remember I came here, and it was about 10 years ago. There was a presbytery learning event that was here, and I was asked to, that was when More Voices was new, and I was asked to lead a workshop on the new sort of hymnal supplement. And I came here and I thought, because I had taken courses in digital culture ministry with the use of audiovisual and stuff, and I came here and I thought, what an amazing space this is. I just thought, this is the kind of church that I would like to be in. And that's the truth, because, you know, you had the screens and the screen at the back, and the space was flexible and movable, and there was lots of light. And I remember thinking, this is an amazing space. I wish my church had this space, and now it does. So I'm very excited.
We knew
Yeah.
we knew you were coming.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. It was made for me. Anyway, as soon as I came here, I started hearing stories about how this place was built, this addition, how much sweat equity there was in the place, how beloved it was to this congregation, how you all pulled together. So I thought I wanted to go back to the source and talk to Bill and Brian, who were a big part of this addition. And I had a few questions that I gave them. And so the first one was, just tell us about the congregation at that time. What was in the community that made this new sanctuary, this addition, such an important part and felt like the right thing to do? If you could.
We have a problem.
Yeah?
10 minutes.
It's a long 10, but anyway.
But first, I want to correct you on one thing. You said October the 22nd. Mm-hmm. That's a very important date, but it actually was dedicated on October the 23rd.
Oh.
But on the 22nd, a miracle occurred here.
Mm-hmm.
And we had invited about 600 people to the dedication of the sanctuary. And 600 people said they were coming. And we weren't ready. So we had probably 150 members of the congregation arrive. And you couldn't see the floor for the people that were working and doing and preparing. And I referred to that following day as a miracle of October the 22nd. So that's what got us here. And it was that same mood which allowed us to do what we did do. But just very quickly, the reflections go back to very early, I think it was in the early 1990s. There was a move afoot in Calgary for 4 United Churches to close their doors and get together and open one big box. It was referred to as a big box church. And this proposition was put to us. It was considered by our congregation. We had a vote on it, and I think 99% said no. We know our church. We know it is 30 years old. We know it's getting rough at the edges. But we wanted to work with this church in this community. And at that, I'll turn it over to Bill.
Those were exciting times. As we move forward a little bit from making the decision that we would not go or not be partner to the big church, the big box church, we realized we had to move and do something for ourselves. And at that point, the idea took shape in the form of plans for the future of McDougall. It was a challenge for certain. I think the first thing in the puzzle that fell into place was the creation of the foundation here at McDougall. We didn't have one prior to this, and one of our members, Art Hiranaka, was instrumental in helping us get that established. With the foundation, we could accept shares, money, things that would save income tax to our donors. We also became aware that the government of Alberta, while they weren't keen on giving money to a church, they would provide grants to a foundation. And with the help of Brian, we accessed several $100,000 of your tax money to come back to McDougall. You want to carry on from there?
Those were the prosperous years in Alberta. Unfortunately, that program no longer exists. But the first stage in developing the church was we had a committee formed called Space and Facilities. And that was a very important committee because it really asked questions. What do we need? And this was headed up by Marilyn Cheney and Alan Naylor. And we had a wide range of generation in there. And they came back and said, yes, you're right, we do need additional space. It's hard to believe how small this facility was. And we were growing as a church because what happened after the failed big box arrangement was that two of the churches in the region, United Churches, closed, and a lot of members came here. And at one stage, we were filling the original sanctuary literally to the doors, and it was. We all remember Don Swatsky, the fireman. He sometimes wouldn't attend because we were exceeding the legal limit for the building, or he threatened not to attend. I think he snuck in. But it was a very exciting period as we slowly moved forward. Space and Facilities told the church that we need to go ahead. I volunteered. I wasn't asked. They wanted to move on to the building development. I had done some work on the Space and Facilities, but I was still working at that stage. And then the good fortune came and I retired. And I said, I need a job. It doesn't matter what it pays. I want a job. And I got a job. And I took on the responsibility for our Building and Development Committee, and I had a wonderful team of people. We had Bill said, I'm going to look after raising all the money, right? Yeah. We had bankers who says, I know how we can get a loan if we need it. And we had all sorts of people who just, carpenters that you wouldn't believe. We have so many carpenters in this church, we could go out and build a new building today if we wanted to.
Wow, there's an idea. An addition out in the parking lot.
Well, maybe we wouldn't go that far. But literally in the early stages of construction, once we'd hired an architect, once we'd gone through all the approvals, and if I was to go through everything, we'd be here till about 2 o'clock. So I'm watching the clock, and I see the clock that was put up for Joanne's purposes.
Yeah, it doesn't help, does it? Everyone says, did you see that clock back there? I'm like, yeah, good time.
But we had a great group of people on all the committees and all the volunteers that worked. And but we hit our first crises. We got our building permit. We'd hired an architect. We'd hired a contractor. And then we hit the building boom of, I guess it was 2000 or 2004, I think, or 3, whenever we started. And our contractor said, I can only provide you with one carpenter. And we wanted to see the east addition to the building built first, because that would be where the office would go. And I said, give us one carpenter and we'll give you 10. How about that? Mm-hmm. Just like the loaves of bread.
The loaves of fishes, that's right.
And we had 10 carpenters out there, and that eastern addition was basically built with volunteer help. We didn't lift the big beams into place or things like that, but the carpenters did the work. And that same mood continued for the next 2 years until we got to the celebration. And then it continued beyond that when we needed to finish off the basement. Back to you, Bill.
Well, we had some ideas of what we wanted in this new building, we had to get the architect, and while Brian was selecting the architect he thought that would best suit McDougall, my committee was searching for a fundraising specialist. There are several within the United Church. Several suggested us, when they got back to us, that with a congregation our size, we might be able to raise $1.2 million towards this new building. We also interviewed Brenda Watt, and after interviewing Brenda Watt, we felt that she would do the best job for McDougall. She had graduated through the United Church and had a master's degree in stewardship, and we thought those credentials were just right. So we chose her, and one of the things that she wanted us to do was to have fun when we raised the money, to enjoy what we were doing, and we had her every Sunday, well, almost every Sunday, come before the congregation, and she would have another new idea with which to raise some funds. One of the ideas which we used, we had these cards, and the cards were made up. Is one for adults saying, "Why is McDougall and your faith important to you?" Another one for the adults, "What are your hopes and wishes for McDougall in the future?" And people were provided with pencils, and they filled in their comments. Even the children, who are the people at McDougall you respect and admire and really like, and why? And those were fun to read, Alton. We displayed all of these colored cards around the church, and people were able to read them and see what their peers were suggesting. It was an effective way of doing that. Brenda had other good ideas, like when you ask for a donation, you have to be sure and tell people that we know that everyone needs a certain amount of money in their left pocket to look after their families, but we want them to reach to their right pocket and dig deep there when they can. So all this was taking place while Brian was searching for an architect.
Well, I didn't do it on my own. We think we found a good architect. We think we found a good contractor. And the important thing about the people that we found, they were not dyed in the wool from the point of view as there's only one way to do it. And we were able to craft our own way of designing and building the building. If you look up the first design that came in, this extra churchy piece up there was inverted. In other words, the architect wanted to bring the ceiling down and the ceiling down here so it would be lower. And I immediately said to him, "It will leak. We're not doing that," because he was creating a trough. And here's the old engineer say, "You do not create a trough unless you really, really have to." And I also like the higher ceiling. It gives us a little bit of a cathedral look at this end, but yet a lower look at the other end. So there was lots of design backwards and forwards. When we selected the height of the stage, we had a committee meeting in here, and we had about 10 or 12 people, and we finally decided that the platform would be whatever height it is at the moment. It was a community, a real integrated event. It took us about 2 hours to decide how high the platform was going to be. But it's right, and it's a perfect ellipse. Somebody worked it out from their old mathematics. So a lot of sensible things went into this.
So you've covered most of the questions that I had for you. It was compelling at the time for this congregation to expand and to grow and to have a facility that was good for that. You raised a lot of funds through government donations and through a fundraiser who came and helped you out, Brenda Watt. I know her well, and she's a great person, and this congregation really got behind fundraising, and then the people were involved in every aspect of this building, right down to how high this is going to be, which is amazing to me that it can take 2 hours to decide that, but perfection,
Democracy.
it can't be rushed. Yeah, democracy. That's right, it's kind of messy. So this is just the last question, if you can just give a minute each. So it's built, and through the history, I guess there was a addition that had been built in 1984 or something, there, like an area, an entrance area, and this one as well. And as I said, the first time I walked in here, I was amazed at the space and how wonderful it was, and what I was excited not by the building, but what you could do with it, right? That's what excited me, what you can do in this space. And so I ask you, as people who've been involved in this church and were involved in this addition, what's your dream for the future? Like in your minds, as we move forward and we're in our stewardship campaign, thinking about, we got the building, what are we going to do with it? You know, like how is our ministry going to change? What's your dream for how this space would be used?
Part of my dream, I see every evening I come down here, I see the parking lot full. And that's what a church is. It isn't just a Sunday event. I would love to see it full every Sunday. And I think we're heading in that direction.
Nice. How about you, Bill?
I guess we wanted the church to be used by many different people in the community. At one time, you used to be able to use a school and have meetings in the school, but that dried up, and that was no longer available to people. And we knew if we built in this building a number of different sized rooms, that they would be convenient for the community. And that's what we did. We ended up with different sized rooms, all built by volunteers downstairs, and painted by volunteers. A lot of the ladies got involved with that. The McDougall volunteers are really very, very impressive. The first group that were involved here, we had openings to the west of the church where the exit is now. And we laughingly called that our garage door. But those of you that were here will remember the big hole in the side of the church. But the gravel trucks could come in, and they dropped their gravel within the building, and volunteers helped spread it, and then volunteers helped pack it down so that we could put a cement floor on top of the gravel. It was amazing. While you're looking this direction, you can see the cross behind you. That is from the old church, from the old sanctuary, but the cross was highlighted by several carpenters within the church to their own design, and we think it's pretty special. We also noticed that we had volunteers doing the office at the back, as Brian mentioned, the painting inside, put down carpets in the corridors and hallways and offices. That was used carpet, but we knew that within a short period of time we would be able to replace it, and that has been replaced now. The platform that we're sitting on was done by volunteers. The labyrinth lines inside the other church to make it more useful was done by volunteers. The cross outdoors, that was built by volunteers. So we take our hats off to the people at McDougall for pitching in, and the selection of the contractor was just right for McDougall. He allowed volunteers, laymen if you wish, to work beside his professionals, and it's worked out really well. Brian may have an idea of how many hours were saved by volunteers.
So that was the church, how it was built. I just want to give a hand. Let's just clap for Brian and Bill. And well, clearly, everyone who was here at the time was such an important part of it. And I guess that's, as we go forward, that's our hope, that we will be as inspired to be there for our future as we are in remembering our past, because we are a people of resurrection.